2 years ago, one night changed everything. A wealthy CEO confined to a wheelchair, a struggling young programmer, and a baby neither of them expected. All their lives collided in ways no one could imagine. Sit back, relax, and listen closely. This is a story of love, secrets, and a Christmas miracle that will leave you breathless. The ballroom smelled of pine, perfume, and too much money. I carried a tray of champagne glasses higher than my shoulder and tried to smile even though my arm hurt. Christmas music floated through the air, soft and sweet, but my feet ached from standing all night. I kept thinking about my mother at home and the medicine she needed. Every coin I earned tonight mattered. People in glittering masks laughed and danced beneath golden lights. I felt like a shadow in black and white clothes, invisible among them. When the head waiter told me to deliver one last bottle of champagne to the VIP suite upstairs, I nodded quickly. The bottle was heavy and cold in my hands. I just wanted to finish my shift and go home. The hallway upstairs was quiet, the carpet thick and dark red. I knocked on a door that matched the number on the note, but no one answered. I pushed it open gently. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of a fireplace. A man sat by the window, his back to me. I thought I had made a mistake. "Excuse me, sir," I said softly. "Your champagne." He turned his head, and my breath caught. Even with half his face covered by a silver mask, I could see sharp lines, pale skin, and eyes like winter, cold and beautiful. His gaze moved to my hands, then to the bottle, and finally to my face. For a moment I felt seen, really seen. "You're not one of the guests," he said. His voice was deep but tired. "No, sir. Catering staff. I'm sorry. I think I came to the wrong room." I stepped back quickly, but he stopped me with a quiet, "Stay." Something in that word made me freeze. I could see a wheelchair beside him, metal gleaming in the firelight. His suit jacket hung loose over his shoulders, and there was an untouched glass of wine on the table. "You don't have to stand," he said after a moment. "You look exhausted." I didn't know what to say. No guest had ever spoken to me that way before, like a person. I placed the bottle on the table and tried to smile. "It's a long night, sir." He gave a small laugh that sounded broken. "Christmas Eve. Everyone pretending to be happy." I looked at him again. Beneath the mask his eyes looked older than his face, full of something heavy. "Maybe they are happy," I said. "Or maybe they just hope they are." He looked surprised, then waved toward the chair across from him. "Sit." "I won't tell." My heart thudded. I should have left, but the warmth from the fire and the sadness in his voice pulled me in. I sat down carefully. The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. The flames moved in his eyes like reflections on ice. After a while, he said, "What's your name?" "Liam." "Adrian," he said simply. We talked, first about small things like the music and the snow falling outside, then about heavier things. He told me about a car accident 3 years ago, how he lost the use of his legs, how people stopped looking at him the same way. I told him about my mother's illness, about working different jobs just to keep the lights on. The more we spoke, the easier it became. I forgot he was rich and he forgot I was staff. For the first time that night, we were just two men trying not to feel alone. He poured us both champagne. "A toast," he said. "To what?" "To surviving the year," he said. "Even if it hurt." I lifted my glass. The drink burned my throat but warmed me inside. His eyes softened as he watched me. The firelight painted his face gold and orange. Without the mask he would have been even more handsome, but it wasn't his looks that made my heart race. It was the way he listened, the way his guard fell little by little. Time slipped away. Midnight bells rang faintly through the window. Snow covered the city roofs below. Adrian's voice grew quiet. "People see me and only think of the chair," he said. "When you looked at me, you didn't flinch." "I saw a man," I said simply. "Not the chair." His breath caught. For a second, I thought I had said something wrong. Then he smiled. A small, sad smile that reached his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. I felt a pull in my chest, strange and strong. Maybe it was the champagne, or the sadness we shared, or the magic of Christmas night. I only knew that I wanted to make him smile again. I reached out, and my fingers brushed his hand. His skin was cool, his fingers trembling just a little. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. We sat like that, hands touching, the air thick with things unspoken. His thumb traced slow circles against my knuckles. My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. The world outside the suite faded. The music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, all gone. When he leaned closer, his voice was barely a breath. "You make me feel normal." I shook my head. "You are normal, Adrian." His eyes glimmered in the firelight. He moved nearer until I could feel his breath against my cheek. Every sense sharpened. The scent of pine from the tree, the soft crackle of wood, the warmth between us. I wanted to close the space between us but didn't dare. Then he did. His lips met mine, gentle at first, as if asking a question. I answered without words. The kiss deepened, slow and careful, full of everything we were afraid to say. It wasn't wild or hurried. It was aching, a whisper of need. When he drew back, both of us were shaking slightly. "I shouldn't have," he said, eyes dark with emotion. "Maybe we both needed it," I whispered. The clock ticked softly. Snowflakes drifted against the window. We stayed close, sharing warmth and quiet. He touched my face like he wanted to memorize it. I saw the man behind the walls, the one who had been hiding for so long. Later, when the fire burned low, he grew silent. His head rested against the chair, his lashes casting shadows. I didn't ask for more. I only reached out and took his hand again. "Merry Christmas, Adrian," I said softly. He opened his eyes and gave me a look I would never forget. "Merry Christmas, Liam." Dawn light spilled through the curtains before I realized how late it was. My shift was long over. I stood up quietly, afraid to wake him. He was asleep, face peaceful for the first time that night. I wrote a small note. "Thank you for talking to me." I left it on the table beside the empty glasses. As I closed the door, a strange ache filled my chest. I didn't even know his last name, just Adrian. The present always felt heavier after that night. 2 years later, I was still working too many jobs, living in a small apartment with my mother's old photos on the wall and my son, Noel, sleeping in a crib beside my bed. He had my smile, but his eyes, those silver-gray eyes, belonged to Adrian. Sometimes when Noel laughed, I could almost hear that soft chuckle from the suite. I wondered if Adrian ever thought of me, or if that night was buried under the weight of his world. I never tried to find him. What would I say? "Hi, remember me? I'm the waiter who walked into your life for one night, and this is our son." I kept my secret and raised Noel alone. Every morning I kissed his forehead and told him we would be fine. Every night I worked until my eyes burned, coding for companies that never cared about the person behind the screen. Under a fake name, I sent out my best work and hoped someone would notice. They did. One snowy morning my inbox flashed with a message from a big company, Frost Technologies, asking to meet the programmer behind my code. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but something told me to go. I didn't know then that I was walking back into the storm, straight toward the man I thought I'd lost after one Christmas mistake. When the email came from Frost Technologies, my hands trembled so hard I almost dropped my phone. They wanted to meet me, well, the name I used online. I'd spent months freelancing under Noel code, a mix of my son's name and the dream I had to build something better for him. I thought it was a joke at first, but the message had an address, a time, and a real signature. Adrian Frost, CEO. The name meant nothing to me then. I just saw a chance to pay my mother's hospital bills. That morning everything went wrong. The sitter canceled. Noel was teething and clingy. I couldn't risk missing the meeting, so I packed diapers, toys, and a bottle, and strapped him to my chest. "You'll have to come to work with Daddy today," I whispered. He giggled, tiny fingers gripping my shirt. Frost Tower was huge, a glass giant stabbing the sky. The guards stared when they saw the baby carrier, but no one stopped me. The elevator ride felt endless. My reflection in the mirror walls looked tired. Same brown hair, same nervous eyes. I adjusted Noel's blanket and tried to breathe. When the doors opened on the top floor, the air felt colder, quieter. A woman with sharp eyes and a neat bun smiled politely. "Mr. Chan? Mr. Frost is waiting for you." She led me through wide halls lined with art that probably cost more than my whole life. My shoes squeaked on the floor. Then she opened a tall glass door. The man behind the desk looked up. For a heartbeat, I couldn't move. Silver gray eyes, dark hair, a face I had tried and failed to forget. It was him, the man from that Christmas night. Adrian. My stomach dropped. I felt heat rush to my face, and my knees nearly gave out. He looked older, harder, but still achingly familiar. A wheelchair stood behind the desk, polished metal shining in the light. He froze too. His eyes went from my face to the baby strapped to me, then back again. The world shrank to the sound of Noel's soft coo. "Liam!" His voice cracked slightly. I swallowed hard. "Mr. Frost," I said, though my throat was dry. He wheeled out from behind the desk, slowly, carefully, as if afraid to come too close. His gaze locked on Noel. "Is that—" He stopped, unable to finish. I held Noel tighter. "Please don't make a scene. I didn't know it was you." He reached out but stopped halfway, his hand trembling. "His eyes," he whispered. "He has my eyes." Couldn't deny it. Those gray eyes that once looked at me in firelight now blinked up from the small face pressed to my chest. Adrian looked at me again, disbelief mixing with anger. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know who you were," I said quickly. "You never gave a last name. You were just Adrian." He let out a sharp breath, running a hand through his hair. "You had 2 years. I tried," I said. "I looked for you. But all I had was a name and a memory." He turned his chair sharply toward the window, his shoulders tense. "Do you have any idea?" He stopped, lowering his voice. "He's my son." I felt something break inside me. "Our son," I corrected softly. The silence that followed was heavy. Noel whimpered, sensing the tension. I rocked him gently until he calmed. Adrian turned back to me. "We'll do a DNA test," he said flatly. "I need proof." I wanted to argue, but I nodded. "Fine." The next days blurred. Tests, forms, waiting rooms. When the results came, the truth hit us both again. A 99.9% match. Adrian Frost was Noel's father. He called me to his office the next morning. The air felt charged, stormy. "You kept my child from me," he said. "I kept him safe," I replied. "You think I wanted to do this alone? You disappeared. You were a stranger." His jaw tightened. "I would have done anything for him." "Would you?" I asked quietly. "You didn't even know I existed." That shut him up. For a moment, the only sound was Noel babbling on the floor with a toy. Finally he said, "You're working for me now. I want you on the new AI project. You'll live here until it's done." I blinked. "Live here? My assistant will prepare a room for you and the baby. In exchange, I'll pay for your mother's treatment." It sounded like an order, not an offer. But the thought of my mother lying weak in that hospital left me no choice. I nodded. "And," he added, voice soft but firm, "I want shared custody. I miss too much already." I looked at the sleek office, the glass walls, the man who had every comfort money could buy but still looked lonely. "Your house isn't ready for a baby," I said. "Then help me make it ready," he replied. That night we moved into his penthouse. It was beautiful but cold. No color, no toys, just glass and steel. Noel's laughter echoed strangely off the walls. Adrian followed us everywhere in his chair, silent, watching, learning. At dinner he asked awkwardly, "What does he eat?" "Mashed fruit, sometimes cereal." He nodded, writing it down like a business note. Later, I found him in the living room, trying to hold Noel. His hands shook, terrified he might drop him. Noel reached for his tie and giggled. "I don't know what I'm doing," Adrian said. His voice was rough. "You're doing fine," I said. I moved behind him and guided his hands. "Support his back. See? He likes you." Noel laughed, small hands patting Adrian's face. Something in Adrian's expression melted. fear replaced by wonder. For the first time, he smiled without restraint. It hit me harder than I expected. We sat like that, the three of us, while snow fell outside. I watched his fingers trace gentle circles on Noel's tiny arm. He looked up at me then, eyes shining in the soft light. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For giving me a reason to live again." The words caught in my chest. I didn't know what to say. That night, after Noel slept, I walked into the balcony for air. The city below glowed like a sea of stars. Adrian joined me quietly, wheeling up beside me. "He's amazing," he said. "He is," I replied. "He's all I have." He turned to me. "You don't have to do it alone anymore." The wind was cold, but his voice warmed me. We stood there, side by side, two broken pieces trying to fit together. I could see the battle in his eyes, the guilt, the anger, the fragile hope. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "Me too." When he smiled faintly, it felt like forgiveness. Inside, Noel stirred, calling softly for me. Adrian looked at me with something that felt like promise. "Tomorrow," he said, "we'll baby-proof everything. I want to learn." I nodded, my throat tight. As I lifted Noel into my arms, I glanced back at Adrian. He was still by the window, watching us, eyes full of light and longing. For the first time in years, I didn't feel completely alone. Moving into Adrian's penthouse felt strange at first. The space was huge, cold, and perfect in a way that made my small apartment feel like a cardboard box. But I had no choice. Living there temporarily made sense for Noel and for the project. The first night, I carried him into the nursery-adjacent room Adrian's assistant had set up. Noel looked around, big brown eyes sparkling, and gurgled happily. I laughed softly and put him down on a small rug. He crawled straight toward the window to look at the lights outside. Adrian wheeled in quietly behind me. He didn't say much, just watched. Sometimes I wondered if he even knew how to be a father. His hands rested on the wheels of his chair, as if he was trying to feel for something he couldn't see. I walked up to him and touched his shoulder. He flinched slightly, like he wasn't used to human contact that wasn't business. "Don't worry," I said softly. "You're doing fine." He gave a small, tight smile, but his eyes betrayed something more. Fear, uncertainty, and a deep loneliness I knew too well. The first coding session started late that evening. Noel had just fallen asleep in his crib between our desks. I worked on the new AI interface and Adrian sat close, hovering over the code, making notes. We didn't talk much, just worked in a rhythm that slowly formed between us. I watched him carefully. He wasn't cold, he was cautious. Every movement, every word seemed measured. But beneath that, I saw the cracks. He pushed people away before they could pity him or leave. I understood that because for years I had been pushing people away too, even when all I wanted was connection. When Noel woke up in the middle of the night, I lifted him from his crib and walked over to Adrian. "He wants you," I said quietly. Adrian froze, unsure. I placed Noel gently in his lap. The baby's tiny hands explored his face, and I saw something miraculous happen. Adrian's hands shook as he held him, but he didn't let go. He looked down at Noel like he was seeing a new world through those small eyes. "Does he like me?" Adrian whispered, voice rough. I smiled softly. "He loves you. He knows you're his dad." Noel gurgled, reaching for Adrian's cheek. Adrian laughed quietly, a sound I hadn't heard before. A real laugh, full of awe and disbelief. I felt my chest tighten. Something inside me softened, a warmth I hadn't expected. Watching him with Noel was like seeing him naked, not in body, but in soul. The man who had seemed so untouchable was tender, nervous, and completely vulnerable. Days passed and the rhythm grew. We worked late into the nights, Noel asleep between us. Adrian learned to maneuver his chair around the baby safely. He even started small exercises to strengthen his arms, motivated by the tiny boy who wanted to be held more than anything. Noel became his little physical therapist, crawling toward him, grabbing his hands, cheering every small effort. And Adrian tried. He pushed himself, determined, and I couldn't help but admire him. One evening, I looked up from my laptop to see Noel standing on wobbly legs, tottering toward Adrian. The baby's tiny hands reached out. "Dada!" he cried. Adrian's face lit up with disbelief and joy. Tears sprang to his eyes. He caught Noel carefully, holding him close, whispering words of love and reassurance. My own eyes filled with tears. Watching them together, the small triumph, the vulnerability, the overwhelming love, made me realize something I hadn't admitted before. I was falling for Adrian. Not despite his disability, not despite his past, but because of the strength he showed in being himself and the love he gave so freely to his son. The next challenge came faster than I expected. Marcus, Adrian's half-brother, had somehow discovered the baby and the fact that I was living with Adrian. He leaked photos to the press, spinning a story of the illegitimate disabled CEO and his baby daddy. Within hours, the company board was questioning Adrian's judgment. I saw the tension on his face, the anger, the shame he tried to hide, and I knew I had to do something. The disastrous Christmas party was the breaking point. Investors whispered. Some openly mocked Adrian for his broken family. I watched him smile politely, nod, and take their criticism silently. My heart ached for him. He had worked so hard, built everything himself, and here they were judging him for love. I couldn't stay quiet. I stood up, cleared my throat, and spoke to the room. "You're all looking at him the wrong way," I said, voice shaking slightly at first but growing stronger. "Adrian Frost is not defined by his disability. He is the most capable person I know. This project, our AI for people with disabilities, will change lives. And he is the reason it will happen." The room fell silent. Noel, asleep in my arms, stirred and rubbed his eyes. I continued, "Family isn't about perfection. It's about love, dedication, and showing up. Adrian shows up every day. And I know, because I've seen him be brave, vulnerable, and committed in ways none of you could imagine." Eyes turned toward Adrian. I could see disbelief, then respect, spreading across their faces. Some of the investors whispered among themselves. Some nodded slowly. The story went viral later that night. Public opinion shifted in our favor. The press that had tried to shame him now praised him as a devoted father and visionary CEO. After the party, I found Adrian alone in his office. He didn't say anything at first. He just wheeled to the window and looked at the city lights. I sat next to him, feeling Noel stretch his tiny hands between us. "He saw me," he finally said quietly, voice soft. "All of me." I placed my hand over his. "Yes," I said. "And you're amazing." He turned to me, eyes glimmering with something tender and new. "I don't want to hide anymore. Not from him, not from you, not from the world." I leaned close. "You don't have to. We'll do it together." Noel reached up, tugging gently at Adrian's sleeve. "Dada!" he squealed, giggling. Adrian laughed, the sound rich and warm, a sound that made my heart ache. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel fully. Hope. Hope for love, for family, for a life where we weren't defined by fears or past mistakes. Adrian and I were learning to be a family, and it was terrifying, messy, beautiful, and real. I watched him lift Noel, holding him close, and I realized that no matter what the world said, this was our life now. We had our rhythm. We had each other. And in that penthouse, under the soft glow of the city lights, I understood that family wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and I was ready to fight for it. Noel was 15 months old now, and every day with him felt like discovering a whole new world. He wasn't just a baby anymore. He could solve puzzles meant for children twice his age, point to colors on screens, and even try to fix things around the house, especially Adrian's wheelchair. One morning, I found him dragging toy tools across the penthouse floor, crawling under the wheelchair like a tiny mechanic. I laughed quietly, trying not to wake Adrian. "Be careful," I whispered, picking up a small wrench from Noel's grasp. He pouted but waved his tiny hands like he was explaining something. Adrian wheeled into the room then, eyes narrowing as he saw Noel fiddling with his chair. "Stop that," he said sharply, but his voice shook just slightly. I could tell he wasn't really angry, more scared. Noel looked up at him with wide gray eyes and laughed. "Fix that, he said, bouncing in excitement. Adrian froze and I could see it, the fear behind his eyes. Fear of the past repeating. He had been a prodigy once, showcased and exploited as a child, and now his own son showed signs of genius. He didn't want Noel to go through the same pressure or the same public spectacle. His hands gripped the wheelchair armrests, and I walked up and put my hand on his shoulder. "He's just exploring," I said softly. "He's a child. He'll be fine." Adrian shook his head. "I can't let him become a showpiece," he muttered. "I won't let anyone use him like they used me." I understood. My own fears of being too small, too weak, too broke for the world were nothing compared to Adrian's. But I also knew that protecting Noel didn't mean locking him away from life. The next few days were filled with late-night coding sessions again, as Adrian and I worked on the AI assistant for people with disabilities. Noel would sit between us, playing quietly with his blocks, occasionally babbling instructions to us like a little boss. Watching him, I could see Adrian smile more than I had ever seen before, fully relaxed, fully present. On Christmas Eve, our AI assistant finally launched. The product was a success. People loved it. Families wrote messages, thanking us for creating something that could change lives. Adrian smiled at me after the launch, his hand brushing against mine. It was small, almost accidental, but it said everything. We had done this together. But the peace didn't last long. Marcus was relentless. That very night, I received a message that made my stomach drop. He had filed for an emergency guardianship hearing, claiming Adrian was emotionally unstable and unfit to raise Noel. He was demanding custody, positioning himself as the responsible adult. My heart sank. I knew Adrian would take this harder than anyone. The next morning, I found him staring out of the penthouse window, wheelchair still in place, eyes distant. He didn't turn when I entered. "They're coming for him," I said softly. "Marcus, the court." Adrian wheeled slightly, shaking his head. "Noel doesn't need this," he said quietly. "You don't need this either. You should take him. Leave, before we're all dragged through the mud." I froze. My chest tightened. I wanted to argue. I wanted to refuse. But I saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear that had haunted him for years. The fear of being broken, of failing the ones he loved. "No," I said finally, voice trembling. "I won't leave. I'm not leaving him, Adrian. Not now, not ever." He looked at me then, the wall he always kept around himself crumbling slightly. "You don't understand. My life, my past, my disability, it will ruin you both. I can't let you." I stepped closer, holding Noel gently in my arms. "You're not ruining us. We're a family, and families fight together." Adrian's lips trembled, and I could see the raw pain he usually hid behind steel-gray eyes. He looked at Noel, then back at me. "I can't protect you from the world. I failed too many times already." "No," I said firmly. "You're protecting us by being here, by fighting. That's enough. That's everything." The tension hung heavy in the air. Noel, sensing the worry, crawled onto Adrian's lap, holding onto the wheelchair's armrests for balance. He looked at his father with those small, trusting eyes. And then, something miraculous happened. Noel refused to let go. "Dada!" he cried, clinging tightly to Adrian's chest. Adrian's face changed instantly. The fear, the guilt, the uncertainty. All of it melted away for a brief moment as he held his son close. He whispered to him, soft words, barely audible, but filled with love. I felt tears sting my eyes. I had never seen Adrian like this before. Completely human, completely vulnerable, completely himself. "I'm not leaving you," I said quietly, my hand brushing against his shoulder again. Adrian's eyes met mine. They glimmered, full of something I hadn't dared hope for. Trust. I don't know what I'd do without you," he admitted softly. "You'll never have to find out," I replied, my voice shaking. That day, Elena came to the penthouse with a folder thick with documents. She smiled at Adrian and me. I've been collecting evidence against Marcus for months, she said. Everything you need to prove he's sabotaging the company, embezzling funds, and trying to manipulate you. We'll win this. Adrian's hands shook slightly as he took the folder. I can't believe it, he whispered. You don't have to believe it, I said. You just have to fight. Noel squealed from Adrian's lap, reaching his tiny hands toward the papers, trying to play. Adrian laughed quietly, his first real, relaxed laugh in days. I realized then that our family, however small and messy it was strong. We would survive Marcus. We would survive the world. That night, I sat with Adrian and Noel in the living room, the city lights twinkling through the glass walls. Noel was finally asleep in Adrian's arms, his tiny body warm against his father's chest. Adrian held him with a careful tenderness that made my heart ache with love and admiration. I was wrong, Adrian admitted, voice low. I thought I was protecting you both by pushing you away. I didn't know. You did the best you could, I said softly. And now we're together. That's what matters. He looked at me then, eyes glistening. I never knew love could be like this. It's messy, I said, smiling despite the tears in my eyes. But it's real, and it's ours. We stayed like that until midnight, Noel sleeping safely in Adrian's arms. The three of us together, a small but complete family. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Noel would grow up safe, loved, and encouraged. Adrian would see himself through my eyes, not just the world's. And I would stay by their side, no matter what Marcus or anyone else tried to do. Christmas had never felt so real, so precious. And even with the guardianship hearing looming, I knew we would fight it together. We were a family now. Broken pieces, maybe, but pieces that fit together perfectly. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and nervous tension. I could feel my heart thumping like a drum in my chest as we walked through the doors. Adrian wheeled beside me, his hands gripping the wheels tightly. Noel was in his little carrier on my chest, his soft head resting against me, eyes wide as he took in the bright lights and the serious faces around us. Marcus's lawyers were already at the front, shuffling papers, whispering to each other with smug expressions. They looked at Adrian with disdain, like he was some fragile thing that didn't belong here, and maybe he felt that way himself. I knew the world had always been cruel to him, judging him for things beyond his control, and now they were using our family as a weapon. Your Honor, one of the lawyers began, voice loud and sharp. Adrian Frost is a disabled, unmarried man. He is the product of a reckless, impulsive encounter and has not demonstrated the ability to care for his child properly. The evidence shows emotional instability and recklessness. Custody should be granted to someone capable, responsible, and stable, namely the petitioner Marcus Frost. I could see Adrian stiffen, jaw tight, eyes flicking down to Noel, who let out a small whimper. My chest ached seeing the fear and hurt in my son's tiny face, and I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. I stepped forward as the lawyers sat back, smirking, and I asked the judge if I could speak. Yes, the judge said, nodding. You may address the court. I took a deep breath, feeling Noel squirm slightly against me. I looked at Adrian, who had his eyes fixed on the floor, and I reached out to squeeze his hand. Your Honor, I began, voice trembling at first but gaining strength. Custody isn't about perfection. It's not about being strong enough to carry a child everywhere or being able to do everything on your own. It's about love. It's about dedication. It's about sacrifice. The room went silent. Even Marcus's lawyers paused, unsure how to respond. Adrian Frost has been there for his son in every way that matters. He has fought for him, supported him, and loved him more than anyone could imagine. He's not just capable, he's exceptional. And not because of his money or his business success or his intelligence, but because of his heart. I have seen him spend hours developing technology to help other children with disabilities. He's always thinking about others, even when the world thinks he is weak. I paused, feeling Noel shift against me, tiny fingers gripping my shirt. I looked at him and whispered, It's okay. Baby, Dada is here. He responded with a soft coo and a happy wiggle, and my chest tightened with emotion. Your Honor, I continued. A father is not measured by his ability to lift a child, but by his willingness to show up, to fight, to care, and to love. I have seen Adrian do this every day. I have seen him give Noel his first steps, teach him his first words, comfort him when he cries, and cheer him on when he succeeds. That is what makes a father, not ability, but love. I felt tears prick at my eyes, but I kept speaking. I know the law talks about stability, but family stability is more than appearances. It's being there when it matters. And Adrian Frost has been there every moment that counts. I paused, breathing heavily, and the judge looked at me with a soft, understanding expression. Behind me, Adrian's eyes met mine, glimmering with something I hadn't seen before. Hope, fear, and love all tangled together. Then Elena stood, her heels clicking against the floor as she carried a thick folder of evidence to the front. Your Honor, she said firmly, we have documented evidence of Marcus Frost's embezzlement and deliberate sabotage of Frost Technologies. He is unfit to make decisions for Noel, motivated only by greed and personal gain. The room murmured. Even Marcus's smug expression faltered. Adrian leaned toward me, whispering, You're amazing. I smiled softly, squeezing his hand. We're a team, I replied. The judge nodded slowly, reviewing the documents. I am moved by the testimony and the evidence presented, she said. However, the decision will rest upon what is in the best interest of the child, and what ensures the family's stability and well-being. Adrian shifted slightly in his wheelchair, and I could see him hesitating, fear flickering in his eyes. Then, in a voice that surprised everyone, including me, he spoke. Your Honor, if I may, he said, wheeling forward slightly. I have spent my life broken in many ways. I have made mistakes and I have been hurt. But there are two people who make me want to be whole again. Two people who are my reason for everything, Liam and Noel. My breath caught. The courtroom was silent. I felt Noel stir against me, and I lowered him to my chest. Adrian continued, voice steady now, full of courage. I am asking for custody, not because I am perfect, but because I love them, because I will fight for them every day, because without them I am incomplete. I cannot promise perfection, but I can promise devotion, dedication, and love. Liam and Noel are my family. I am broken, but with them, I am whole. Tears blurred my vision. I stood, holding Noel, and whispered softly, I love you, Adrian. He looked at me, eyes filled with raw emotion. I love you too, always. Noel clapped his tiny hands, babbling happily, and the room softened. Even the judge seemed moved, leaning back in her chair, considering every word. After what felt like an eternity, the judge finally spoke. Given the evidence and the testimonies, I find that custody shall remain with Adrian Frost. The petitioner, Marcus Frost, is hereby denied. A wave of relief washed over me. I hugged Noel tightly, and Adrian wheeled forward, placing his hands over mine. I could feel the weight of his gratitude and love. Marcus was led away in handcuffs shortly after, arrested for his crimes against the company and his brother. 6 months later, the scene changed to a quieter, warmer atmosphere. It was the next Christmas, and Adrian was undergoing an experimental treatment. For the first time in years, he could stand with support for short periods. Noel, now able to speak in full sentences and even debug simple code on a tablet, laughed and pointed at his father's attempts to balance, clapping his little hands. I stood beside Adrian, holding his arm as he steadied himself. Noel ran around the living room, babbling excitedly. Dada! Higher! Higher! He shouted, clapping again. Adrian's face was radiant, a mixture of pride and joy. I can't believe this. I can actually stand, he said, laughing softly. You did it, I said, squeezing his hand. You're incredible. We hosted a Christmas party that year for children with disabilities, filling the penthouse with laughter, music, and joy. Watching Noel play with the other children, sharing toys and giggles, I realized how far we had come. Our little family was thriving. We were happy, whole, and strong. Finally, the moment came to place the star on top of our Christmas tree. Adrian took my hand, supporting himself, and I guided him gently. Noel clapped and giggled, his small hands reaching toward the star as we lifted it into place. Adrian whispered, his voice soft and full of emotion, "You gave me the greatest gift, a reason to stand again." I hugged him tightly, Noel squishing between us, and felt a warmth I hadn't known was possible. The trials, the fears, the broken moments, they were all behind us now. Our family was complete. That night, as the city lights glimmered outside our window, I held both Adrian and Noel close. I realized then that love wasn't about perfection, or strength, or wealth. It was about showing up, fighting for each other, and being there when it mattered most. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty, we had all the love and family we would ever need. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Cherry Boy Heart BL for more heart-stealing tales of love, drama, and surprises.